Imagine going to sleep in a world where the rules of a multi-trillion-dollar industry are just, you know, locked in stone.
Right.
And then you wake up the very next morning to find that the entire foundation has completely shifted beneath your feet.
Literally overnight.
Yeah, I mean, there was no grand press conference. There was no warning. Just a silent digital upload in the middle of the night.
A single update that sent absolute shockwaves through the global economy.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it exposed these massive vulnerabilities in Western tech and left the stock market reeling.
It really is the ultimate case study in how fragile seemingly permanent monopolies actually are.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, we are looking at a single 24-hour period that perfectly encapsulates the whiplash of the current tech landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you look at our source for today's deep dive, which is Aaron Rose's Tech Reader AI Digest from July 17, 2026, the sheer scale of the events stacked into that one Tuesday is just staggering.
It's almost hard to believe it all happened on the same day.
It really is. You have this monumental software drop, a bizarre paradox in global hardware, the birth of a brand new international treaty, and some incredibly high-profile missed deadlines from the exact tech giants you would normally expect to lead the charge.
Yeah, the contrast is pretty wild.
So let's start with the event that triggered the financial earthquake, the so-called Kimi moment.
Right, the overnight launch of Kimi K3 by Moonshot AI.
Yeah.
Which was, a Chinese lab dropping a frontier-level system without a keynote, without any flashy CEO presentation.
Nothing like that at all.
No, just a quiet update to their website that fundamentally changed the math for everyone.
And the specs on this thing are mind-blowing. Like, let's ground this for a second. The digest lays out that this model carries 2.8 trillion total parameters.
Which is massive.
Yeah, and for anyone trying to wrap their head around that number, parameters are essentially the synaptic connections in a digital brain.
Right.
It is the measure of the model's complexity and its reasoning capacity.
And I think context is everything here, right? Because before Kimi K3 dropped, the largest open models coming out of China were hovering around 1.6 trillion parameters.
Wow, so a huge jump.
Oh, yeah. We aren't talking about a marginal incremental improvement here. This is a 75% increase in structural complexity in one single leap.
That's just wild.
And independent benchmarks put its performance right up there with the absolute frontier of closed models. I mean, we're talking GPT 5.5 and Claude Opus 4.8 territory.
And it also ships with native vision, an always-on reasoning capability, and a 1 million token context window.
Which is huge for data processing.
Right. And just to put that token window into perspective for you, a token is roughly a word or a piece of word. 1 million tokens means you could drop the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Plus the appendices.
Yeah, exactly. The appendices too. You drop all of that into the prompt box all at once.
It's
You could upload vast libraries of legal case law or, a massive proprietary code base and ask the model to analyze it in one shot, holding all of that data in its active working memory.
Yeah, it changes how enterprises can use these tools.
And it comes in two variants, K3 Max for standard tasks and K3 Cluster Max for massive parallel processing. But the size and the capabilities aren't even the most disruptive parts.
Not even close. I mean, the truly disruptive element is the pricing and the access.
Exactly. The API is priced at $3 per million input tokens and $15 for output.
Which is super aggressive.
Very aggressive. But the absolute kicker is what happened on July 27. The full model weights, so the actual underlying code, the architecture, the brain itself, essentially were released for anyone to download and self-host.
Right.
It's one thing to get cheap access to a car. It's entirely different when you wake up to find the engineering blueprints, the factory molds, and the precise engine specs for a top-of-the-line Ferrari posted on your local bulletin board.
Yeah, completely free.
Anyone, anywhere, can now build one, tweak it, run it themselves. But wait, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
If this technology is so incredible and it's suddenly this accessible to everyone, why did it trigger a global tech sell-off? I mean, according to the source, the NASDAQ immediately shed 1.4%.
Yeah, it took a huge hit.
The S&P 500 dropped. Semiconductor indexes fell hard. Traders were panicking on the floor, calling it a Kimi moment.
Right.
Why does a free, world-class Ferrari blueprint cause a stock market crash? That feels completely backwards to me.
It does, yeah. It feels counterintuitive until you look past the technology itself and examine the underlying economics.
Okay, break that down.
What's fascinating here is that Kimi K3 isn't just a software release. It is an existential threat to the business models of Western closed-source AI labs.
Oh, I see.
Think about the massive hyperscalers, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Amazons. Between them, they have $452 billion tied up in AI capital expenditures.
Right, they are buying land, securing water rights, building these sprawling data centers, and hoarding hundreds of thousands of GPUs that consume gigawatts of power.
Exactly. And they are spending all that massive capital with one singular expectation.
Which is?
That they can charge a premium toll for access to their top-tier closed models. That is how you amortize a $452 billion investment.
That makes sense.
You charge enterprise customers a premium API rate because you have the smartest model in the world and they don't.
Right.
But suddenly, Kimi K3 comes along, operating at that exact same frontier level of intelligence. And it effectively drops the pricing floor to near zero if an enterprise decides to self-host it.
Wow, so the moat just evaporated.
Completely. The market looked at Kimi K3 and realized that if highly capable AI is becoming ubiquitous, open, and virtually free, those Western giants might never actually see a return on that $452 billion infrastructure bet.
Because no one's going to pay the premium.
Right. The sell-off was driven by the sheer terror that the closed-source labs will never be able to justify their premium prices again.
If you put yourself in the shoes of an enterprise customer, this is a massive paradigm shift.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you run a large engineering team or a corporate IT department, July 17 is the exact moment you have to stop and rethink your entire budget.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself why you're paying so much.
Right. Does paying premium top-tier rates for a closed AI ecosystem still make any financial sense when you can just download a 2.8 trillion parameter model and run it on your own local servers?
And you get complete data privacy doing that.
Exactly. You get the privacy and your operational costs just plummet. For a massive chunk of the Fortune 500, the math suddenly flipped overnight.
It completely alters the routing decisions for enterprise workloads globally. I mean, if you don't have to pay a massive toll to a closed lab to get frontier intelligence, you simply won't do it.
Now, if Kimi K3 terrified the stock market because it threatened the return on investment for all that software infrastructure, look at the company physically building the foundation for it.
Yes.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC.
The ultimate picks and shovels business of the entire AI gold rush.
Right. Their Q2 2026 earnings dropped on this exact same day, and the numbers from the digest are just staggering. They pulled in $40.2 billion in revenue, which is up 36% year over year.
That's a huge jump.
Huge. And they hit a record $21.99 billion in net income. And they didn't just report historic profits, they aggressively doubled down on the future. They committed an additional $100 billion into their air zone expansion.
Wow.
Yeah, that brings their total committed spending in the U.S. to $265 billion.
And we really need to understand what that money is actually funding.
Right, what's it for?
That capital is heavily driven by the demand for high-performance AI chips and cutting-edge 2-nanometer production.
Which is incredibly small.
When we say 2-nanometer, we are talking about manufacturing at a scale that literally challenges the laws of quantum physics.
It's mind-boggling.
To give you an idea, a strand of human DNA is about 2.5 nanometers wide.
Wait, really?
Yeah. TSMC is etching billions of transistors onto silicon wafers at a scale smaller than DNA.
That is insane.
It requires astronomical capital, ultra-pure environments, and laser technology that practically borders on science fiction. And the demand for it is insatiable. I mean, high-performance computing now makes up 66% of TSMC's total revenue.
But I need you to untangle a massive cognitive dissonance for me here.
Sure.
TSMC announces a $100 billion expansion, and absolute record-shattering profits. Yet the report says their stock fell on the exact same day.
Yeah, it did.
They got caught up in the exact same semiconductor sell-off as the software companies. They're literally printing money, so why did the market punish them?
Because the market is suffering from a massive split personality right now. You see, TSMC operates entirely at the fabrication layer.
Meaning they just build the hardware?
Right. They don't design the chips. They take the architectural designs from companies like NVIDIA or Apple and physically bake the silicon. They capture their margin regardless of whose software ends up running on those chips.
Oh, okay.
Whether a data center is running a closed Western model or an open-weight Chinese model, it is all running on silicon that TSMC manufactured.
So they get paid either way. They're completely agnostic to the software war.
Precisely. They shouldn't care if Kimi K3 is free. But investors are projecting into the future, and they are terrified.
Terrified of what?
Well, on one hand, you look at TSMC's $40 billion quarter, and you have physical proof that AI infrastructure is incredibly profitable right now.
Right.
On the other hand, the Kimi K3 drop has investors panicking that the application layer, the software companies who are actually buying all this compute, won't be able to generate enough revenue long-term to keep paying for it.
Ah, so the fear is that if open-weight models tank the software business model, those massive orders for new chips will eventually just dry up.
Exactly. Investors are pricing in the current physical reality of booming hardware demand while simultaneously panicking about the future economic viability of the software that runs on it.
That is such a precarious position.
It's like watching a city build the most expensive, state-of-the-art highway system in human history while simultaneously worrying that nobody will actually be able to afford the cars to drive on it.
But TSMC committing another $100 billion to the Arizona desert shows they are betting the traffic is coming regardless.
Very true.
They believe open-weight models won't eliminate the need for massive compute. They just change which companies capture the profit at the end of the day.
That is their institutional bet, yes. The physical build-out continues.
Now, while the U.S. is pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into that physical hardware in places like Arizona, you have to look at what was happening on the other side of the world on that exact same day, because the global rules of the game were being actively rewritten.
This is perhaps the most structurally significant event of July 17, honestly, even if it didn't generate the frantic stock tickers that Kimi K3 did.
Right, so let's look at the digest. On July 17th, Chinese President Xi Jinping delivered the opening keynote at the World Artificial Intelligence Conference, or WAIC, in Shanghai.
Yeah.
He stood before a room full of government officials and tech executives and formally positioned China as the cooperative AI partner for developing nations. And then came the actual mechanism.
A treaty.
Yes. 29 countries officially signed an agreement to create WAICO, the World Artificial Intelligence Cooperation Organization. Now, just to be clear for everyone listening, we're strictly reporting what's in the text here, not taking any political sides, but the implications laid out are massive.
We really need to pay attention to who those 29 countries are. You have Russia, Brazil, Indonesia, Pakistan, Kazakhstan.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Look at those demographics. Brazil and Indonesia alone represent over 400 million people.
Exactly.
You are looking at a massive swath of the global south. WAICO is essentially the formation of a rival United Nations specifically built for AI governance.
It is a deliberate, multilateral countermove to the U.S.-led Voluntary Standards Framework and the UK AI Safety Institute.
Okay, so break down why this specific move is so critical.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer legitimacy of this move is what should be turning heads in Western capitals.
Right, because of who was there.
Exactly. This was not a symbolic photo op or some vague memorandum of understanding. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres was physically in attendance for the signing.
Which is a huge deal.
It gives WAICO a massive, undeniable signal of international legitimacy. You now have an intergovernmental body headquartered in Shanghai with 29 founding member states actively writing the rules for how AI will be deployed, regulated, and shared across the developing world.
And the timing is practically cinematic because the West was completely caught flat-footed on this exact day.
They really were. The U.S. had previously set an August 1 deadline for its own AI governance and voluntary standards framework.
And what happened with that?
As of July 17, they had absolutely nothing to show for it. No concrete standards, no binding international agreements.
So what does a bifurcated standard actually mean functionally? I mean, why does it matter if the Global South uses a Chinese standard versus a Western one?
Think about it like 5G infrastructure, or even something as simple as electrical outlets.
Okay.
If you control the technical standards and the governance frameworks, you control the deployment. If WAICO dictates the safety protocols, the data sharing agreements, and the hardware compatibility standards for half the global population, Western tech companies will find themselves locked out of those emerging markets unless they conform to a framework designed in Shanghai.
Wow, so there's a huge economic barrier.
And the Western media largely missed this. They were so fixated on the NASDAQ dropping that they ignored a geopolitical earthquake.
Yeah, the digest points out that institutions outlast market sell-offs.
Right. The West now has to decide if they engage with WAICO as a legitimate global body or try to build a competing structure from scratch while already wildly behind schedule.
So China executes this flawlessly on July 17. They drop a frontier-level open-weight model that resets global pricing, and they establish a massive global governance institution with UN backing.
A very busy Tuesday.
Right. So how did the Western tech giants spend that exact same Tuesday? Mostly by missing deadlines, bleeding talent, and fighting each other in court.
The contrast in execution is just incredibly stark.
Let's run through the stumbles. The biggest one, Google's Gemini 3.5 Pro completely missed its leaked July 17 launch date.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just a slight delay. This marks their fourth missed public date for their flagship model.
And Gemini 3.5 Pro is supposed to be their absolute powerhouse.
Right. The specs on it are genuinely unmatched. It boasts a 2.1 million token context window, which is double what Kimi K3 just launched. Plus, it has this highly anticipated deep-think reasoning capability.
We should probably explain what deepthink actually is, because it represents a major shift in the tech.
Yeah, go for it.
Most large language models operate on System 1 thinking. They just predict the next most likely word in a sequence very rapidly.
Right, like advanced autocomplete.
Exactly. But deepthink introduces System 2 thinking. When you give it a complex problem, it pauses. It creates an internal hidden scratch pad. It tests different logical pathways, verifies its own math, realizes if it made a mistake, backtracks, and only outputs the final answer once it has reasoned through the entire problem.
So it actually thinks before it speaks, rather than just blurting out a highly probable sentence.
Exactly. It's a massive technical leap for complex coding or advanced mathematics.
But despite that incredible tech, they can't get it out the door. And alongside the delays, Google's bleeding top-tier talent.
Yeah, the brain drain is real.
Noam Shazir, a legendary researcher, left for OpenAI. John Jumper headed to Anthropic.
And it's not just Google having a rough day.
No, it's across the board. Apple is busy suing former employees, Tang Tan and Cheng Lu, alleging they took proprietary IP to OpenAI. Meanwhile, over at Google DeepMind, a safety researcher publicly resigned in protest over a classified Pentagon deal.
There is just massive systemic friction everywhere you look in the Western ecosystem right now.
So here's my question for you. Is this just a string of terrible luck? Or is there something fundamentally broken in the Western pipeline right now? Like, with features as strong as DeepThink, is this a technical failure or an organizational one?
This raises a really important question about the innovator's dilemma. I mean, this is almost entirely an organizational and leadership failure.
I think so.
Yeah. The technical case for Gemini 3.5 Pro is likely completely real. The underlying code for DeepThink might be revolutionary. But you have to remember, these are trillion-dollar hyperscalers trying to move at the speed of nimble startups.
And they just can't.
They really can't. They have massive legal compliance teams, PR departments, safety review boards, and complex government contracts like that Pentagon deal that caused the resignation.
So there's just too much red tape.
Exactly. When key architects and top-tier researchers leave in the middle of a flagship model's delayed launch cycle, it points to deep internal misalignment. The talent is leaving because they are frustrated by all that red tape and the endless delays.
They want to build and ship, and the hyperscaler structure just won't let them.
Exactly. And in this specific market, the window to capitalize on a technical advantage is measured in weeks, not years.
Wow, weeks?
Yeah, every single week that Google delays their launch because of internal friction, the open-weight alternatives like Kimi K3 get better, faster, and cheaper.
So the lead just vanishes.
The problem isn't the model's code, it's the narrative of execution failure that has surrounded the organization since May. Western labs are running out of time to justify their premium, closed ecosystems when highly capable models are becoming ubiquitous and totally free.
Yeah, if you don't ship your product, you lose the opportunity to write the story of your own model.
That's exactly right.
So what does this all mean? If we pull all these disparate threads together from July 17th, 2026, a very clear, if somewhat uncomfortable, picture emerges for anyone paying attention.
It really does.
The days of assuming the AI frontier is a permanent, unchallenged Western monopoly are over. The open-weight movement, spearheaded by incredibly capable models like Kimi K3, is violently rewriting the economics of the tech industry, actively threatening hundreds of billions in software infrastructure investments.
Yeah.
At the exact same time, The companies physically manufacturing the foundation of this tech, like TSMC, are experiencing historic booms, pushing the boundaries of physics with 2-nanometer chips, yet creating a wildly volatile market paradox.
A lot to process.
And while all this economic chaos is unfolding, the global governance of AI is actively splitting into competing spheres, with the Global South rallying around a new, highly legitimate institution in WIICO, while the West struggles with internal friction, talent drain, and missed deadlines.
It is a massive tectonic realignment of power and capital. But I want to leave you with one final thought that builds on everything we've unpacked today. We spent all this time analyzing the race to build the smartest model. But if models like Kimi K3 continue to push the cost of top-tier AI intelligence closer and closer to zero, then a fundamental economic shift occurs.
What's that?
The AI itself is no longer the product.
Wait, what do you mean?
Think about it. The algorithms will eventually become a pure commodity. They will be as common, as cheap, and as standardized as electricity or tap water.
Just a utility.
Right. The intelligence layer will just be an invisible utility. In that new world, the most valuable, the most expensive, the most tightly guarded asset on Earth won't be the artificial intelligence algorithm.
It will be the data.
It will be the proprietary private data that you own to feed into it. The AI is just the engine. Your data is the fuel. We spent years obsessively worrying about who controls the smartest AI. But are you prepared for a future where your raw, private data is actually worth more than the supercomputer processing it?
That is a fascinating reality to ponder. Because when you wake up and find the blueprints to build a world-class Ferrari pinned to your front door for free, you eventually realize the car isn't the scarce resource anymore.
Exactly.
The truly valuable part is the high-grade fuel required to make it run.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you're listening, keep questioning the narratives, look closely at the underlying mechanics of the tech you use every day, and never assume the foundation beneath you won't completely shift overnight. We will catch you next time.